Welcome to the Daily Items Winter Sports Podcast, a weekly look at what's happening with the Susquehanna Valley's high school and college teams. From Bucknell and Susquehanna University men's and women's basketball to all the high school hoops, wrestling, swimming, and more, the Daily Items Sports Team has the latest on the players, coaches, and teams to watch. Now, here's your host, Daily Items Sports Editor Kurt Ritzman.
Hello and welcome to week 2 of our Winter Sports Podcast. I'm Kurt and I'm joined to start again by Todd Hummel.
Hello. I don't know why I paused there. Like I've never done this before.
This is week 18 of Kurt and Todd talking Valley High School sports.
Of like the 8th year of the podcast, maybe.
So let's jump into boys basketball. Since we sat here a week ago.
Puns.
I wasn't even going for one. Seriously, not intended. Since we sat here last week, what have been, I guess, the week 2 storylines of the season?
Well, a little surprise last night. Jersey Shore upset Shamokin in Division 1. Nate Ewing had 31 points for Jersey Shore in that game.
Wow.
61-60. That was a bit of a surprise. I'm trying to think. We did Danville. We talked about Danville before the Crestwood game last week. They ended up losing that Crestwood game to drop to 3-2. But they've won 2 in a row. They're the last. They and Jersey Shore are the last 2 undefeated teams in Division 1.
Okay.
Division in the Heartland Athletic Conference Division 2. That's going to be Loyal Sox to take. They won 66-40 last night over Milton. Saw the first Division III showdown of the year last night. Southern Columbia and Mount Carmel played out at Mount Carmel. That was a fun one. Ended up 65-53, but it was still a 1-point game with 3 minutes left before Mount Carmel went on a run. And, really think Mount Carmel's going to be one of the best teams around here. And I think Southern has a shot to be as well, just because, there was a stretch, maybe 6-7 minutes in the third quarter where they played that 2-3 zone exactly like how Pete Long likes it. And I think once they get used to that, the biggest thing I noticed is Coach Long's still kind of calling out the defensive assignments while they're playing. So it kind of makes me think that, they're not quite used to ready for what he wants to do. But once they figure that out with, putting Julian in the middle of a 2-3 zone, John Lazicki said last night there's not many offensive rebounds to go around when he's rebounding, and he had 15 rebounds last night, and that'll make them tough. And then I was really impressed with Mike Balachik last night. We talked a little bit last week that he had 19 and 18 in the first 2 games of the season, and that's going to be the biggest difference for Mount Carmel this year because Donovan James did not shoot well last night, only 1 field goal, ended up with 8 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists. So he did have a good game, he just didn't shoot well. But Balachik picked up the scoring for them, scored 23 points, and then they got 13 points off the bench from Avery Demko. So if they get a bench game going with those 3 scores, that's going to be huge down the stretch or later in the season for them.
Last week we talked about Line Mountain. Had a close game with Millersburg, who is, I think, a pretty good TVL team. Is that just a continually maturation process during the season then for the Eagles? You think?
I think it's looking like that. Brevin Dirk, of course, is a real good athlete, one of the better football players in the area, and he's been their leading scorer this year. He's a guard, and I think it's a young team. I think it's growing. Just from looking at Mike's story on Monday, it seems like. They kind of learned some things. When they met Midwest in the first or the second game of the season, they fell to Midwest. And, I think we all know Midwest struggles in basketball, along the same lines as Line Mountain the last couple of years. And, it sounds like they learned something from that. They went out to Juniata and won a game, played played Halifax pretty tight too, who most people think is going to win the TVL for the second straight year. So I think it's kind of a gradual improving process. I mean, if you can get a couple wins, I think with these power rankings, I think you don't have to have a winning record to be one of those 8 teams. I think you get into districts. I think that's a big goal for some of these teams like Line Mountain and Midwest.
This is the first year for the power rankings, right?
Yes, for everything.
Okay, so I mean, have you taken a look at
I have not looked this week. I checked at the end of last week, and they hadn't started doing them yet.
But so we don't know how that's going to affect the playoffs.
No, not quite yet. And I think looking just being on Twitter this week, it looks like most districts don't start till this week or next week to start updating those. So I will have to take a look a little later on to check that out. But I think right now you got to go with some of the assume the 4-1, 4-0 teams are probably at the top. I haven't seen. I don't think like last year when Wellsboro was undefeated for most of the season in basketball. It doesn't seem like there's a great team in the northern tier this year. So we'll see how that turns out when the rankings come out.
I was just thinking about that the other night, as far as Lourdes especially, which already has 2 wins over 5A teams.
And you're gonna play Southern next week out in the Bob Prober tournament out at Shamokin, probably with hoping for a shot at another 5A team or another 4A team in Shamokin in the finals. So, and Coach Sandry has tried to play that schedule the last 2 or 3 years just to, get that team ready for the playoffs. You don't see it until you get to those games like Sanka for Freedom and other where, Danville has some size to give them problems. They tried to play at the beginning of the season in that tournament. No, that was Shamokin. I'm sorry. Was that the Shamokin tournament?
No, that was Lourdes.
All right,
but Danville lost to Allentown Central Catholic, and so Lourdes then played them in the final.
Yeah, they played Schick, Sealans Grove, and they have played Lewisburg. I don't know if that's gonna come up again. So I think. I just think it's to get them tested. There'll be some tough games, obviously, in that Schuylkill League tournament at the end of the year. If they're, probably the favorite in Division III to win that title and get back to the Schuylkill League tournament at Martz Hall.
So outside of that Shamokin tournament with Southern, Lourdes, and Shamokin, anything else you're looking forward to over the next week or two as far as boys basketball goes?
Honestly?
Yeah.
Vacation time. No, the other thing I'm looking forward to is obviously Shamokin and Danville play in 2 weeks from Friday.
Okay.
That's going to be a big game in Division I. I have not got a real good chance to look at the schedule for next week, actually. Just happened to see that they would release the boys and girls pairings for the Probert tournament. To see that Southern and Lourdes are playing next week.
Okay. So that's our look at boys basketball. I'm going to say goodbye to Todd for a couple minutes and welcome in Chris Nagy to talk about wrestling. All right. And now I'm joined by Chris Nagy, our wrestling writer. How you doing, Chris? First time you've joined us this winter.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, wrestling's got off to a great start. We had that big event at Bucknell, the sellout, and that really got everybody energized. And then PA Power Wrestling brought out their rankings. Southern's #1 in the state, and we have a lot of excitement this year. And got out to a couple matches already. You can feel it. Things are not going as expected. There's a lot of parity. There's some of the transfers, some of the academics are kicking in a little bit, and it looks like this is probably going to be one of the best buildups we have into the January-February grind that we've ever had in the Valley. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Good. If you guys watched last week, Todd and I tried to lend a little bit of our wrestling knowledge with some information that Chris told me over the phone, but we're happy to have you here with us this week. I want to talk about one of the matches you saw last week. A bit of a surprise result with Danville beating Mifflinburg. What'd you see in that match?
Well, that's one of those little misnomers early in the season. Both are going to be very good. Danville went up 1-1 to duels this weekend, which was a little bit of a surprise because Towanda usually wins their own duels. I mean, Bill does a real nice job up there, and Towanda came down to Danville 2 years ago in the district duels and spanked them.
Wow.
And I think they wanted to go up there and kind of just say, hey, we're around this year. Danville has a lot of nice depth, but when you look at it, the way Danville beat Mifflinburg was they won every single bout by pin.
Okay.
And when you build those bonus points, the Mifflinburg won as many matches, but they got blown off the mat due to the fact that you got 18 to 21 bonus points. And like Derek Reber said, you're not going to win if you get pinned in every loss.
Yeah.
And
that Mifflinburg coach, Derek Reber.
Yeah, Mifflinburg, yeah.
Those of you who aren't up on wrestling.
I apologize.
That's okay. Quick quick note. Bonus points. If you win by decision, you get 3 points. Major decision 4. Technical fall 5. Pin, forfeit, injury, default, disqualification, all 6, which really add up in team scores.
I've been covering wrestling for 20 years. I automatically assume everybody knows what I'm talking about. And I apologize for that. But but Miff was also dealing with, they had a couple kids that had real nice shows at the opening tournament, the Mifflinburg Top, or the Williamsport Top Hat, also known as the Tom Best Invitational. There was some but those kids weren't eligible because of grades.
Okay.
The next week, so they were missing a couple kids. They had one that a lot of wrestling fans are kind of worrying about and everything. I'm wondering about Tyler Stolfus is no longer in the Mifflinburg School District. He has transferred out. He was a state medalist last year. He was a state qualifier the year before. Stolfus is transferred out. I believe he's at St. Joseph Prep. He went to a Catholic school or a private school, so he's no longer in the Mifflinburg School District.
Okay.
Wish him all the luck. I had talked to him. He said one of the reasons why he was leaving was because of academics, and but I know he is wrestling, and we wish him all the luck because he's still an area kid.
Sure. So outside of that, what has jumped out to you in the first two or so weeks of the season?
The quality of losses by some of the teams.
Like losing close matches to
very good teams.
Okay.
And when you look at scores sometimes, it might look like the first match I went to, Central Mountain Selinsgrove. On paper, that looked like a blowout, but if you would deep dive into it, you saw that this was probably one of the most competitive times. Central Mountain has been in the Hack 1 for 6 years. They've never lost a Hack 1 match.
Wow.
So Selinsgrove, if they were going to have a bad match, Selinsgrove head coach Seth Martin said if we were going to have a bad match, this was the match to have it in.
Did they have a bad match?
No.
Okay.
I thought they were very competitive. And there's 2 names off of Selinsgrove, 3 names off of Selinsgrove I really want people to watch for this year. Nate Schoen and Coy Bastian jump out, but Scotty Kissinger is at 140. He wrestled 120 last year, cut a lot of weight and everything else. I think once he fills into this 140, 145 range, I think is he going to medal at States? Is he going to make it to States? But I think he's going to be a name for us to watch.
Okay.
Another team that has done good in some losses has been Lewisburg.
Okay.
For those who don't know, this is the swan song for Lewisburg head coach Jim Snyder. He won his 300th match last year. The program won its 500th match, so this is his last year. And one of the names to watch off of that is his son Dakota, who has made some noise and everything else, especially when they wrestled number 1 Southern Columbia Sunday over at Bloomsburg. It was they held their own. They lost by about, I think it was 18 points, but they held their own. It was very good, and I was saying we're going to see a lot of this parity going in. Next week we have a lot of these team tournaments and everything else, but I think the one thing that I want everybody to really circle, wrestling fans to circle, is that first Saturday in January. That's going to be the First Line Mountain Duel.
Okay.
And that's going to be probably one of the best days of wrestling we're going to see in this area until team duels start.
Wow. You mentioned Line Mountain just quickly. Big TVL match to open their season, lost to Upper Dauphin. I mean, those were the 2 favorites going into the year. So is that, don't worry about it if you're a Line Mountain fan?
Don't worry about it because Upper Dauphin, this, like we had with EJ, East Juniata during girls soccer season, that girls soccer team was basically a traveling team that just happened to go to EJ. This happens to be a traveling wrestling team that happens to go to Upper Dauphin.
Okay.
These kids have been together for 4 years. They do 2 things: football and wrestle. I don't even think they find time to eat. But that's all they do.
Hopefully their heavyweight does.
But that's all they do is football and wrestle. They don't play anything else, and it's there. And you got that Bronson Gerber, and you got a bunch of other kids that are this is what they do. They go to M2 over at Penn State. They go to a Buffalo Valley Training Center.
Wow.
Bucknell. These are kids that have been that they just wrestle.
Okay.
Line Mountain over the last couple of years, and we all knew this was coming. There's the talent drain. It's the pendulum has just swung back this way a little bit, and it happens in wrestling. It's going to happen in Southern in a couple of years. You're just going to have this swing of the pendulum back, and the talent's not going to be there, and then it's going to come back forward. It happens in every sport, and it just happens in wrestling. Line Mountain's going to be fine. They're going to surprise everybody come sectional and regionals and districts like they've done every year. I mean, you think that they don't have the talent or anything to run, and all of a sudden you're sitting at Williamsport on a Saturday afternoon wondering why Line Mountain is in the top 3 in the team race. So it's just the way that program's built.
Okay. Well, that's our look at wrestling. And make sure keep an eye out for those Line Mountain duels. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome back. Todd has rejoined me to talk a little college basketball now.
How much? I'm assuming you got a chance to watch the game Saturday. Bucknell and Ohio State.
I watched most of that on the Big Ten Network. I thought for most of that game, Bucknell seemed just as good as Ohio State, ranked 15th in the nation. At times they were better, but at the end, 2 not great looks at three-pointers that would have won, but still that's something to be pleased with. I know you watched some of the game too. What were your impressions as someone who doesn't follow the Bison quite as closely as I do?
Well, I think the biggest thing that caused Bucknell problems is the guy inside. I don't think you're going to see that kind of size out of anybody in the Patriot League. You'll probably not see that size again in the NCAA tournament if they get there. I couldn't believe I had it on and I went out in the kitchen to do something for 2 minutes to help my wife with lunch, and I came back and they were winning, and I completely missed the 15-0 run. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think you saw what happens when they don't shoot well in that first 8 minutes of the half, and that's something that you probably don't see that good of defensive pressure in the Patriot League either. I mean,
Ohio State, I think, head into that game had a top 4 ranked defense in the country. So, yeah, you're not seeing that from Holy Cross or Lehigh most nights.
No, probably not. And the Bucknell women keep rolling too. Won again yesterday.
Yeah,
we were up really early yesterday.
Yes, I got a 11 o'clock start for Education Day, so I was there. Not as early as I usually get to a game, but it's my first chance to see the women live this year, and I was very impressed. We taught the senior class is good. Kate Walker, Caitlin Slagus, and Kai English, all 4-year contributors. But I was really impressed with some of the younger players. The sophomore class is loads better than they were last year, especially Abby Kapp and Allie Johnson. I mean, the other 2 sophomores played key roles, and they have this freshman, Marley Walls, point guard. I think she's going to be great. She's wearing number 12 like Claire DeBoer. I don't want to make that comparison, but similar build, similar hairstyle, making smart hustle plays. I think she could be real good. Their 7th win in a row. They're 9-2, and they're looking very good.
I was going to say, I think that's the biggest thing I've noticed, too, is how much better, especially Abby Kapp has really stepped up scoring-wise and has really helped them. I think they struggled from the arc at times last year, and that's not something that it seems like if 1 or 2 of the girls are cold, that there's 2 other girls that are kind of there to step up and shoot, and they really seem to be deep in shooting. That kind of opens it up for those girls that really the girls that can rebound inside and score inside.
Yeah, one of the things that Coach Russell talked about after the game yesterday was he said he thinks it's the deepest team he's had in his time at Bucknell. They went 11 deep. They had 7 players score before anyone made a second shot. It was 15-2 halfway through the first quarter, and Bucknell had points from 7 different players. They played 11. He said he's happy to go 13 deep. I think they could be real good.
I was going to say that just in my experience, that's a little odd for a coach that would want to be that deep. They usually 8, 9 maybe.
Right.
And
And I'm not sure he wants to be that deep. I just think he has his 11th player is as good as the 7th player on Youngstown State. So why not use it?
Yeah, and and it's just a matter of balancing minutes, and winning cures a lot of that stuff too. That if there would be any type of problems with minutes and stuff, so that but when you are that deep, God forbid anything happens, that's also allows you to survive an injury too, which
sure
probably. At the at least somebody always gets necked up for a week or 2, so that depth is always good with that.
One of Rachel Dumiak, a senior, started 27 games last year. 11th girl in yesterday for Bucknell.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean when your starter is coming in off the bench at that point, a lot of depth.
Yes, deep.
The Bucknell women have a couple weeks off. Maybe not. I don't know what the date is. They play December 29th at Iowa State, homecoming game for senior Kate Walker.
And then the team's on its way. Well, the men play St. Mary's tonight.
Yeah,
Wednesday
last night.
Last night?
Yeah, it's not in today's paper because it starts at 10, but dailyadam.com, if we'll have the score up there for you guys. Played St. Mary's Wednesday and then headed to Hawaii for Diamond Head Classic over Christmas. I'll have a preview of that in Saturday's paper.
That's a pretty good consolation for Christmas.
Yeah.
Some time in Hawaii.
I went over on Sunday and talked to a couple of the guys. Excited about going to Hawaii for Christmas. Most of them have never been, but they're going there to win basketball games.
Yeah. But you still get you probably still get a little chance to get in the ocean and see at least some sunlight. It's supposed to be 40 and rain tomorrow.
They'll open up with Rhode Island. Then, depending on results, they'll play TCU or Charlotte on Sunday. Then on Christmas Day, they'll play someone from the other half of the bracket. Yeah. Too many choices, but Sunday and Tuesday's games will be on either ESPN2 or ESPNU, so you guys can watch that and check Daily Adam. We'll definitely have it in our scoreboard page. Jump into Susquehanna. Now, last week we talked Bucknell was having their time off. Susquehanna now has their time off. I don't think either team plays again until the 29th for them. Susquehanna men coming off a victory in the Monarch Classic. Dominic Dunn, a freshman, has been real impressive for them. It seems like the Riverhawk men, at least, are starting to put some stuff together.
Yeah. And, I didn't see much on the Kings game. The game they won on Saturday. It looks like they played well, and I think they were kind of we talked last week just trying to find the women just trying to find a rotation that worked for them this season, and it seems like Coach Marcinek has kind of gotten that figured out.
Yeah. Last game for the women before their break was not as good. A 20-something point loss at William Patterson, but maybe a couple days away, a couple days at home, a few days of practice before that time off to play. Hopefully the women can figure something out and be on a better trajectory heading into 2019.
And Kayla Klein was Player of the Week again in the Middle Atlantic Conference, and made the game winner. So, again, like we said last week, it's nice to see that coming back from a knee injury. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the only current bright spot for us in Division III basketball right now.
Yes, on the women's side.
On the women's side, at least.
All right, we're going to say goodbye to Todd for real now. Thanks for joining us. And I'm going to welcome in Scott Dudinsky next to talk about girls basketball. All right, now I'm joined by Scott to talk some girls basketball. Maybe some surprising results over the weekend?
I think there were a few, Kurt. I think the both games that involved favorites that were beaten. First, Southern Columbia going to Mount Carmel and losing that game 44-41, the only loss for Southern Columbia through 6 games. I think that was a surprise, and as well, Danville beating Mifflinburg. Speaking with Ironman coach Steve Moser earlier this week, he admitted himself he was surprised that they played as well as they did and won that game going in. Not that he expected them to play poorly, but he wasn't sure they had what it took that early in the year for a win. And just their second game in, they knocked off a really good Mifflinburg team. So over the weekend, particularly that Saturday, there were 2 very, very big wins for teams that are looking to improve and find footing early on.
Then you got a chance to see Danville.
I did. I saw
after that win.
I saw Danville after that win. They were playing earlier this week, and it took on a Shamokin team, which has been, in recent years, a rival. They were Hack 1 rivals and battling for that championship. Almost on an annual basis, and then through realignment of the conference, they were put in different conferences. Danville playing in Division II the last couple of years, while Shamokin won Division I the last 2 years. And then this year they were flip-flopped, not one for one, but as part of a broader realignment, they switched places in their divisions and met again in what was a crossover game. And Danville, again, maybe a bit surprising from their standpoint, just blitzed Shamokin right from the start. Got out to a huge early lead, 19-3 at one point, and just really showed the makings of a good squad. They have a couple players in place, returning starters. Karina Petrus was their leading scorer, a junior from a year ago, but they got a marvelous game from senior center Clara Kuhn, who had 17 points and 11 rebounds. She had 11 rebounds in the first half of that game and really set the tone against a Shamokin team that was getting a star player, Grace Nazi, back from the flu, and she came in off the bench and just really, once they were knocked on their heels by that 19-3 deficit to start. Although they did have a good spurt a little later and cut it to single digits, never did have enough to really make that a game. But Danville 3-0 through their first 3 games this year, leaving Coach Steve Moser 5 wins from 200, and just really showing the makings of a good squad. I'm not sure anybody, including the folks in that locker room, thought they'd be this good this early.
Now, you talked about the 2 inside girls who, what Coach said it's the best inside duo he's had in a handful of years?
In several years. Actually, since their best team, their last district championship team, which featured Amber Renz and Riley Gass, and those two he brought up himself, played together infrequently due to some injury and some illness. But when they were on the court together, they were very, very good. In fact, district championship good, and played some of the best basketball Danville's played in several decades. And Coach Moser believes that this duo, Petrus the junior and Coombe the senior, offer the same kind of physical and dynamic presence inside.
Okay. So you've got the nice inside presence with Coombe and Petrus, and then you've got Lene Williams, who hit 6 threes in a game?
She hit 6 threes, scored 20 points overall in the Mifflinburg game, and it took a Karina Petrus basket toward the buzzer to win that game. But Lene Williams, who had only 9 3-pointers last year overall, made 6 in that game and was a real difference maker, obviously.
So I'm just thinking, not that you can expect that from her every night, but if you've got that threat and then one of the better inside tandems around, that, maybe this could be a year that Danville really makes some noise.
Absolutely, and not only just to stop at them. In this game I saw on Monday against Shamokin, Emily Heath played some point guard and was looking to score, which Steve Moser was very pleased with. She had 11 points against Shamokin. He said that was her first double-digit game of her career. He's also starting a young guard, Olivia Out, who, to my eyes, does not play like the first year varsity starter that she is. Really terrific hustle, savvy on the court, makes good passes. Sometimes coaches look at the younger players that you put on the court could be a liability. Trust me when I say Olivia Out is not that.
So Danville's undefeated. I know I've got at least one other undefeated team in Lourdes. What have you seen from them so far this year? I mean, I know we it seems like every year Lourdes is one of our best teams with a chance to make a state run. I didn't know that I expected that coming into this year, and I don't know if winning their first 3-4 games has changed my perception. But
well, they're 4-0.
Okay.
Liliana Bickle, a senior, scoring 17.5 a game. She has really just evolved as a player. She was a sixth person off the bench during their run to the state final 3 years ago. Sixth person, first girl off the bench, not sixth person off the bench. That'd be pretty deep down the line. But she has really evolved into a player who looks for her own shot, is very good with the ball in her hands, can spot up from 3 or drive to the basket, good at the foul line, and that's evidenced by her 17.5 a game. But beyond that, Frances Chaponis is your prototypical high post passer. She's smart, makes good decisions with the ball, finds cutters. They have Emma Shimko, a junior who's a forward playing good basketball in the 5'8" to 5'9" range. Sierra Coleman, a senior back from a couple of knee problems, is hitting 3-pointers for them again this year and has been a good spot up shooter in that regard. So what you have in Lourdes is an undefeated team at 4-0, and yes, they'll kind of get into the weeds in the Schuylkill League, and we'll lose sight of them a little bit and just how well they're performing, and sometimes they'll butt into some some very good programs in that neck of the woods, Minersville being one. And but they will emerge again in District 4 as probably a favorite, if not a co-favorite, to win that district and make it to states again. And as they proved 3 years ago, when you get into the tournament and only have to win a handful of games to find yourself in Hershey, anything can happen.
Sure.
And this team, to my eye, does have the components. Now, they're not very deep. Coach Mike Lambara is using more girls off the bench as scores get away from opponents, and they have routed a few teams, and he's got to see a little bit more of what he has on the bench. But in their core, 5, 6 girls are very good, and I'd hesitate to say better than anybody in the district.
One more thing I want to touch on before we look ahead. Do you have a Kennedy Stroop from Greenwood update as far as her crazy scoring pace to start the season?
I do. Junior Kennedy Stroop scored 29 points again on Tuesday night. That raises her average to 21.4 over 5 games. The Greenwood Wildcats are 4-1, playing fantastic ball. And the more I thought about it, Kurt, and when I bring this name up, I don't invoke it lightly, but she's having a season along the lines of someone that makes me recall Amber Pellman, who was a terrific field hockey player, and Kennedy Stroop is all-state in field hockey, and also a difference maker on the basketball court. And when you score 29 points twice in 5 games, I certainly think we can call you a difference maker on the basketball
definitely.
court.
What's a game or two that you're looking forward to over for the rest of the year? Is there anything that really jumps out to you?
Well, I think the several of the holiday tournaments.
Okay.
You look at the Selinsgrove Angela Wolf Royalty Tournament, which brought Mifflinburg in this year to play with Bellefonte and Sullivan County.
Wow.
Sullivan County lost a 1-point game to a good Hughesville team earlier this week, so I think that's a quality team. I like that grouping there. There's a holiday tournament at Bloomsburg University this year, which involves teams from the Bloomsburg area, Central Columbia, Bloomsburg High, and also Danville.
Okay.
And Bloomsburg University has not hosted many high school basketball games in recent years, probably not for a decade, or perhaps longer. So this is a treat for those teams and good quality programs there. And the Shamokin tournament, again, a round-robin situation where the Shamokin girls, Southern Columbia girls, and Lourdes girls will be playing over the course of next Thursday and Friday in a round-robin tournament, which, again, good quality teams. Mount Carmel's playing in its first holiday tournament in years, going to Weatherly. I can't remember Mount Carmel playing a holiday tournament under Lisa Verano's guidance in the half dozen years that she's coached there. So that'll be interesting for them. And Warrior Run is hosting a tournament as well. So it's that. I really enjoy that time of year that where kids can play for a trophy, can play for. Can play for that kind of status before the year turns and really find out, where they have. And by week's end, by year's end, I should say, many of these teams will have half their seasons in and just have to start looking at district seeding and PowerPoints for the power rankings.
Scott mentioned something that Todd talked about earlier, that Shamokin tournament, the couple days after Christmas. I don't have to, because if I go to games, I am working and they let me in, but with these Shamokin Southern Lourdes matchups, I would probably pay to go see that.
Yeah, that's going to be a nice that's going to be a nice tournament, not only for the quality of the teams, but the just the passion, the incentive that they have to beat one another. These are rivalries. These are teams that have bragging rights with friends they see in the summers and play maybe on travel teams and things of that nature. So that grouping, particularly the Southern Columbia, Shamokin, and Lourdes grouping, is a really nice round-robin tournament.
And the Purple Palace is a cool place to see a game. I got the chance to see Southern Columbia boys play a state game there, and I was, for a high school gym, it's pretty nice to watch a game.
It does a good job hosting. It's vast. That they can't have too many people in it for sure.
So that's all we've got for you this week. We're going to take next week off, but make sure to tune in January 3rd. For our next Winter Sports podcast, and we've got a ton of good content coming. Fall All-Stars run through Christmas Day. Then the week between Christmas and New Year's, we'll have some of these basketball tournaments. So make sure you guys pick up your daily items, daily. Thanks for watching.